We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We the free, we the proud, we the brave, we the people.
Welcome to the MS Now Playbook, building community across platforms. Please welcome to the stage Marcus Mabry, Ari Melber, Jen Psaki, and moderator Lachlan Cartwright.
G'day, Las Vegas! How are we in AB? My golly gosh, do we have a treat for you today. Thank you for being a part of this. I'm Lachlan Cartwright with Breaker Media. I'm very excited to be up here with three absolute superstars. Marcus Mabry, who's the SVP of Content Strategy for MS Now. Ari Melber, the Chief Legal Reporter and host of The Beat. And Jen Psaki, the host of The Briefing Room. Make them welcome. We have a lot to get through today because between streaming and short form video and the constant push across platforms, it's never been easier to reach people, but I think everyone up here would agree. And over here, it's arguably never been harder to keep them. So MS Now has their answer, and it's a push into a membership, building on something closer to a community than a D2C streaming product. So we're going to drill and dive into that. We're going to talk about superfans. We're going to talk about creating a more direct relationship with your audience through video and audio. And Ari, I want to kick it off with you, mate, because you have been at MS Now probably the longest out of the panel today. And obviously the network went through a bit of a transformation around this time last year. It left sort of the mothership of Comcast, became part of Versant. What was that change like? Can you just sort of talk through the audience about what's changed and what stayed the same?
Sure, great to be with you. And hi, everyone. Great to be with you out here in beautiful Las Vegas. We were, of course, part of the larger Comcast NBC portfolio. Now we're more independent media as MS Now under Versant. And for us, being independent is a strength, and I think it fits our editorial vibe that we already had. The big change for me is one of the things that's been the most amazing in our show is we talk to a lot of musicians and rappers, and we've been lucky enough to be in rap songs. So Dave East, who's a Harlem rapper who works with Nas, he has a song, All Eyes Can See, where he says, you could never sit in this Ferrari with me. On MSNBC, I got Ari with me. This is true. It sounds made up, but it's true. And I was really honored by that. And now I have to call Dave and these other rappers and be like, can we update a remix and make the rhyme MS Now? So that's been one change. Other than that, I think being independent is great. And we're still in New York, and we still go around and do international news, and our audience seems to know the news by our faces and our values, and not necessarily whether a couple letters changed.
Yeah, I mean, Jen, you've been with MS since 2022. How has the audience reacted to those changes? Because MS Now, MSNBC, was such a a colloquial kind of phrase and term. How has the audience kind of embraced that?
Well, first of all, it's great to see you, and thank you all. It's so great to be here with all of you. I'm not in a rap song. I wish. Maybe Ari can help me. Maybe that's part of our journey moving forward. I don't know. I would say that in advance of the transition, there was a bit of anticipation of what this would mean and what it would be and how things would change. And then we transitioned, and I got off the elevator and just turned right instead of left because we have a different set of office suites. And what has been really incredible, just to build on what Ari said, is we were able to, because we're in more of a startup mentality, we were really able to decide as a network who we wanted to continue to grow into being and what we wanted to invest in and how that was going to help journalism and the journalists that were hired, but also the kind of shows we did and reporting that we showcased. And that has been pretty exciting because now we're smaller, we're mightier in a lot of ways, and that's enabled us to be a bit more agile too.
One of the biggest changes has been you've had to build out your own news gathering. You were relying on NBC's vast news gathering resources. Marcus, you've worked for The Times, Newsweek, CNN. I mean, that is a huge undertaking to build that, out. Already you're breaking big consequential yarns. You recruited very well. Like you poached from the likes of WAPO. You've broken big Nat sex stories. How is that process gone to sort of be able to build out this huge news gathering apparatus before you relied on NBC?
I think it's gone better than any of us could have imagined. Kudos to our boss, Rebecca Cutler, who comes from a background, steeped in news and also spent a long time at CNN before she came over to what was MSNBC and has really kind of championed this kind of transformation into MS Now. At no point was she timid, I don't think, and her ambitions only...
No, there's no timidity in Rebecca Cutler. It's very direct.
Her ambitions only grew as we separated, because we could really be ourselves now. Certainly in the digital space, we can invest in a way we've never, ever, NBC had never, ever invested in us before. And so as far as who we are, what we deliver, and I think for the audience, the experience didn't change that much as we separated because we were only more truthfully who we always were. And that was really, really powerful.
And one of the big changes that is going to go on, or one of the big developments that was announced at the Versant Investor Day, is this membership program, which you're heading up. Can you just talk to us about how you're creating a membership product through creating a community? This is not going to be just another D2C streaming product.
Yeah, let me make it really, really clear, and thank you for saying earlier, we are not creating a streaming app. And so we're really happy about that because one of the things that makes us distinct versus other news brands is that audiences come to MS Now for a certain take on the news, to understand it. With Custom News Gathering, we have more factual news than ever before. But we also have, more importantly, I think, in a very crowded media landscape, we have understanding. We have interpretation and analysis. You can get commodity news anywhere in more places than ever before. It is true that there's also more AI slop than ever before. But when you have what we have, which is a distinctive product, and we're going to double down on that and now make it really about community and the people who already trust in us, trust in our talent and our smarts and our analysis for understanding of a often crazy news environment. That means we can really double down on the relationship we have with that audience and that community, which is why we're going to build a news app in a community space that no one's ever done before.
And you really kind of touched on something I think is very unique to MS, and I think Ari and Jen, you can speak to this, is these super fans. You guys host these MS live events where people pay up to $1,000 to come and meet, the likes of Ari and Jen and Rachel and the rest of your colleagues. Why do you think that there is that sort of fervent following that you guys have that I don't think you'd be able to pull, some of your competitors could pull that off?
I'll start. I think one of the things, first, I've only been with MS Now for 4 years. And so as somebody who came from the outside and worked in politics for 2 decades, I knew how fervent and how dedicated the fans and the audience already was, because that was something you think about when you're trying to communicate with people. But for me, I think what I've learned from going to these events and participating in these events is that it's not just an audience of people who are watching. It's really a community of people who we're a part of. We're a part of this community. And when you attend these events, as we both have, and spoken at them and visited with fans and met with people, you feel like you're experiencing them engaging with each other and living through a moment that they have questions about, maybe they're struggling with aspects of, and that's a really cool and interesting thing. I'll also add that, we've been a part of testing a lot of these different products that we're thinking about launching, and I'll let Marcus speak to those because he's the boss. But
thank you for being part of it.
But what I'll say has been really interesting about that is you learn so much from it, what the audience cares about and what members of this community care about. And one of the I guess, testing products I was a part of, we got all these questions, and it was a Q&A. So we were going to answer all these questions, or I was going to answer all these questions. About half of them were from people who were worried that the election in November would not happen. About half of the questions. I was shocked by that. I was surprised that it was that number. But what it told me, it was information to digest and apply to what we were learning about, what we were sharing on the show, who we were talking to. So it is really an interactive relationship, which is what I found to be unique and really make the job fun.
Ari, just talk to me a bit also about sort of the MS Live experience for you, having been there, for some time.
People don't watch the news. People watch people. And that's timeless in the sense that as long as people have been preparing the news in any video format, that's what they're tapping into. Those people and the dynamics have obviously changed. And you can walk through the hall here and look at all of these products and all of these concepts about where we're going. A lot of things are changing. How we access people, what we expect, and how interactive we want it to be is changing. But because we are a network that already really leaned into people, that different hours have a different vibe, we have diversity of style and basically the editorial direction. So that Morning Joe, which is hosted by a former Republican Congressman, Joe Scarborough, might be different than Jen Psaki, who's a former White House official in the Democratic administration, might be different than Rachel Maddow. And so people, I think, connect with us that way. And it's been very natural for us to use events where we have a lot of demand and interest and the digital platforms, YouTube, I know we're eventually going to talk about, to give folks our sense of what's happening. So we're sharing and experiencing it together. And so I think even as linear TV evolves, which we all know about, news, sports, and anything with passion does better because people not only want to experience the thing, news or sports, then they want to experience it with people to talk about it and figure out what they care about and whose take do they like, and maybe they want more than one take. So for us, it's really been a positive migration during a ton of change.
Do you think that was one of the early, Jen's put you on the spot about the testing, so I do want to drill into the testing, what the product looks like, how much it's going to cost. I know this is going to be launching some time away, but do you think one of the first tests was to see that fervent, super fans coming out, and hence why a product like this may actually work for you guys?
Yeah, 100%. We have approached our new digital community app, which will launch this summer. I won't tell you how much, but we'll announce that soon enough.
Make some news for us. Make some news, Marcus.
We attacked it like a product problem. So those of you who work in the product and tech space, you start with user needs. So what do users need? Now, I've been a journalist for 35 years, and when I started in the business, it's like every journalist is like, well, I know the story. I know the story you need because I'm a journalist. I'm an expert. I'm going to tell you. That was fine 35 years ago. Users now tell us what they need. If we start with kind of what every kind of producer of the news and content wants to produce, and we start just by what I like, what I want to do, that is not a recipe for success. So we have to start with what do users need? In a cacophonous, crazy media landscape, what do users tell us they need? So we did a ton of research, and we're still doing that research, and that was part of, thank you so much for being part of our test cases, and we put products out there. It was super fun. And so I love our audience, I love our fans. The super fans are people who right now watch us on linear, and it's worth pointing out, obviously everyone here knows the industry is changing massively, right? But think about kind of our power on linear is a foundation for our future. So say 20 years ago, which probably is the peak of a lot of cable audiences, 20 years ago at MS, then MSNBC, we had 375,000 viewers in prime time. Skip forward 20 years after that to today, we have 3 times that many users in prime time as the landscape has changed. That's a really, really powerful linear foundation to start from, and we're still investing in linear. At the same time, we're investing in digital for the first time in serious ways ever. And so that's just the beginning. Now we want to take that relationship with those super fans and translate it into a digital platform where you can actually connect with our talent, ask them questions, all the time with our reporters in the field, ask them questions all the time, make it a true two-way relationship, and take that live event space where we see that enthusiasm and make it an everyday experience for fans.
So if I sign up for this, I can start quizzing Ari any time of day.
That's
I
right.
can just
Day and
start,
night.
yeah,
Damn,
day
I have
and
some
night.
shadow
And
docket
start-
questions, Ari.
Just start messaging you guys questions. Is this going to be a free and paid product? I'm just trying to envisage it.
Yes.
Like, how will it differentiate from others in the market? I'm just trying to bring
first
that
of all,
alive a bit.
In the kind of news space, to lean into community is something no one else has done before. So that'll be one way. But we will have multiple tiers. So we'll have free tiers and we'll have paid tiers as well.
Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. I think you're going to love it.
I think one of the most fascinating stats about MS is you guys have more views on YouTube than ABC, CBS, and NBC combined. And Ari,
Say it again. Did everyone, you hear that? Well, that's kind of crazy.
you can say it, mate. ABC News, CBS News, and NBC News combined,
yeah.
is
Plus-
MS Now.
Yep.
And Ari, well, some networks were hesitant about YouTube because I think the threat was, if we give our content out there, no one's going to come to linear. This could be a disaster for ratings. You personally ran towards the fire. You were someone who was a really early adapter of YouTube. You embraced it. You've built this huge following online. Why? Was that something you saw and thought, okay, I'm going to go in this direction?
Well, in general, most journalists and storytellers, and now we have influencers and creators, we have a lot of different words, but all of us have something in common. We hear so much about what's different. Usually what we have in common is we want to share. We have something to say. People think the news can be more serious, so how much do people want to talk about the economy or the war or the election? But that's one set of topics. You've got influencers who are saying, here's my passion, or I want to help you find the best restaurant off the strip, and they're gonna give you a video about that. So we all want to share, and so for us, linear TV has always mattered, and I still have guests who are A-list in every regard, and they still want to be on TV, as you all know. This year we've had, we've had Tom Hanks on the program. We had Christopher Nolan, the great director, right? We had James Cameron around Avatar on my news show. They want to be on TV for sure. But when we do a longer piece that also runs on YouTube and people can find it a month or a year later and engage off community, we've had a lot of fortune with that, as Jen, and she does extra original content, Saki Bombs, and other things that are building off what we're doing every day and longer, deeper, different. And so we've done that, and we've found a lot of interest in that, and I think the traction in that. And so we're in a world now where everybody can talk, and that's made it easier to try to talk, but harder to be heard. And so when you have the credibility that we try to maintain, we keep the same news standards, fact-checking, and values no matter what the platform is. I'm not shading anybody else, but we've found that even on YouTube, we break out because our Epstein coverage, to pick a topic that everybody's heard of, does really well compared to conspiracy theories and non-fact-checked items on YouTube.
Isn't that funny?
I think that's a good sign. I think that's a story people are interested in. They go, wait a minute. Let me listen to the lawyer who's a journalist who's being as fair as possible rather than just someone talking, although, again, anyone could talk. So we found a lot of interest in that organically.
I'm gonna move up in my chair. I'm so short that I can't sit back and sit like a normal person. So here we go. I'm just going to add to what Ari said, because when I started at MSNBC, when it was MSNBC, as I referenced earlier, I obviously knew who Rachel Maddow. I knew Rachel Maddow a little bit. I knew the hosts. I knew how their impact was. I knew that politicians I'd worked for wanted to appear on the network because of the reach to a large audience. When I came in, I met with all the anchors. They all gave me amazing advice. And I sat down with Ari, and I don't even know that he remembers this, but what we spent our time talking about was YouTube and how there was this huge opportunity to have longer form conversations on YouTube beyond the show. Because the show is only an hour. We each have an hour. It's 42, 44 minutes a night. That's not actually a huge amount of time to have big, important conversations. And sometimes you can tape an interview where you play 5 minutes of it on the show, but you can have 20 minutes on YouTube. And Ari does this better than anybody does this. But one of the things I was surprised by, and this is a big light bulb moment when I was meeting with Ari, is I came in and I thought, wow, they are everywhere. They have linear television. There still is a big presence on social media platforms. And there really wasn't a big active strategy internally across the network to do that exactly. I mean, individual shows and hosts were doing it, and that may feel, I mean, 4 years ago, wow, really? But that was a huge, huge, huge opportunity, because now there's been investment. Rebecca Cutler and Marcus and others have invested hugely in doing all kinds of different content formats. And what I've thought about, having spent 20 years trying to reach audiences as well, in a very different way, working for politicians and presidents, is you have to evolve and adapt in order to survive. And when I started working for Barack Obama, I worked for him for 10 years. The guy, obviously, whether you like his politics or not, he can give a great speech, and everybody can agree on that. He was always going to keep giving speeches. No good communications person would take away his speech giving, because that's so powerful. So it was always, when I worked for him, kind of a yes and strategy, which is what we're doing now too. Linear TV is, yes, we all have this opportunity to speak to audiences every night, to do different things. There's a lot of, I never know what Ari's doing until I hear it on the call, or I see in his rundown what he's doing. Same thing, right? We all do different things, bring different perspectives on our shows, but the yes and strategy means we're also gonna do longer form YouTube interviews, or I do something called Sake Bombs, where I just give my take on a bunch of issues that week.
Which, if you haven't seen it, I was watching a few of them last night, you have to take a look at them. I mean, some of those Sake Bombs, sorry to interrupt, Jen, they are 15 minutes, they're 25 minutes, they're getting hundreds of thousands of YouTube viewers. How do you decide, how long are you going to go, or do you just think, okay, it's YouTube, I can just let it run here?
The great thing is there's flexibility, and you don't have to talk so long because you're trying to meet a 20-minute mark. We try to do it more than 8-9 minutes so that you can get an advertising block in there, of course, but usually they're about 10-15 minutes. I go through a couple topics, and again, it's just me talking off the cuff it's in my office. There's not a huge hair and makeup situation. You can very much tell by the videos, but they're fun to do, and it's a chance to talk about additional topics that you just may not have the time or space, or we're dealing in such a crazy news environment. It's just another way to communicate and engage with the community of people that are a part of the MS Now family.
And Ari, it's not just YouTube, is it? It's Instagram Reels. You had an interview with 50 Cent, and you, I think, chucked it up on Insta, and it had, 75 million views? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, it was our biggest for the year. So it was 50 Cent talking about his Netflix Diddy doc. He's been on my show several times. That one, as you mentioned, did 75 million views. So that is reaching a lot of people who, by definition, aren't watching the news every day, and a lot of young people. And the other thing we found is, you need a core property, whatever that is, if you're doing media. So that, in our case, obviously, is the shows. That's the video. But then, whether you're spending a lot of time buying ads or placing ads or just doing work that matters, and then it becomes an organic ad because people are sharing it. And so we've seen a huge boost from Instagram because, as many of you probably know, Meta and Facebook, pushed by TikTok, have made a much larger video-first strategy. So 5 or 10 years ago, Instagram might have been rewarding, the most attractive self-portrait you could put up, which is also known as a thirst trap, as you may know.
You posted a couple of those?
And I don't photograph well, so I never had to post one, but they were rewarding that. And the algorithm does that the way you all know. Now, to compete with TikTok, they're pushing video. That's been great for us because we already are sharing, as I mentioned, video in long and short form and chopping it up. And so something like 50 Cent talking about this is the material first. Oh, that's interesting. 50 was in this interview, and I was asking him, your favorite this and that, and I said, who's your favorite villain? And he paused, and he said, Diddy, actually.
Oh, really?
And people call that trolling, like, well, wait, is he your favorite villain? What does that even mean? And this went wide, and that, for us, is an advertisement or a hello for our show and for MS Now writ large. And for anyone who says, oh, I thought that was just politics or just this, well, we've just broaden that out. And so for us, in the old days, I remember 10 years ago, Howell Raines at the New York Times used to say they were platform agnostic. Like you could put anything out on any platform. That's not possible. That's not true. If you work in text, you need to work with text platforms like X or Twitter, right? If you work in video, you need platforms that do video, and so on and so forth. And so because the wider internet, and certainly the social internet, TikTok supplanted Google as the most used site or app in the world. As the social internet has turned to video, if you only make videos, that doesn't help you. But if you make interesting, compelling videos, for us it's been a big boost. And we're not trying to turn those viewers back into linear TV subscribers, because that's not really how that works. But we are trying to turn them into people that check in with us daily, that hopefully value what we're doing. And Marcus, this is not my job, Marcus is going to turn them into people who hop on the new app.
And Marcus, isn't this also because the audience is splintered so much, that there's so much dysfunction in media, that people are consuming, YouTube clips, they're consuming TV, they're consuming, but the audience is so spread apart. You have to capture them where you can find them.
Absolutely right. If you said to my two 16-year-old twins, you have to come over here to this news app, quote unquote, they'd say, why would I do that? So they on the other hand, my kids, YouTube is their homepage, and they spend all their time there. So some audience you actually can convert down to a subscriber if you have this offering that meets their user needs. Right. Others you will never move off the platform you meet them on, and that's okay too if you're increasing your brand awareness. And I will add, if you're monetizing it, if you can, just go back to the kind of TikTok and YouTube of it all. We have 8 billion views a year on YouTube and TikTok. That's a real presence, right? And so lots of those audiences will know us. Some of them we probably can lure over if we give them the right teaser, the right sweetener over to our other platforms. But most of them, we're going to keep that relationship with them there and hopefully grow it out, and hopefully over time have a whole bouquet of digital products that actually increase our revenue streams that we don't have today, that actually makes us stronger and truly multi-platform.
I mean, the other thing, just to add to what they both said, is I've never been a believer in the whole cannibalism argument. I mean, people used to tell, even when I started, don't say anything that's really smart on any platform. Save it for TV. It's
save
like
it for your show.
Right,
Use
save
your
it for
best
your
material.
show. But the thing about it is, to Ari's, there's data for all of this, as we all know. So who is watching Ari's YouTube interviews or clicking through your Instagram reels or whatever it may be. And that means you're reaching just expanded audiences that are beyond who you talk to on television. I will say anecdotally, we were just talking about this backstage. Sometimes people I run into in the airport, and they say, "Oh, you were the press secretary for Joe Biden," and I'm like, "Oh gosh, do you like Joe Biden or do you not like Joe Biden?" It's okay with me either way, but and they'll say, "I've seen you on TikTok. What else are you doing now?" Right? And what that tells you, and oftentimes they're younger, but what that tells you is that I'm not a believer that people are less interested in news. They're just interested in consuming it in different ways. And so we can, to Ari's point he made earlier, we're not changing our mission or our message. We're just distributing it through a range of different platforms. And that's actually quite fun to be able to say, oh, my show's from 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. At 10:01, I'm not going to not talk to the audience until 8:59 the next day. We'll have different conversations about different things. And I think that's how I see it. And I think you probably see it in a similar way, too.
I will point out, you talked about how crazy the news space is becoming and lots of things imploding around us. I will point out that, I want us all to succeed. I want the space to be healthier and healthier all the time. But I will point out that it is an opportunity for MS Now that, that kind of insanity is happening, and it creates more white space for us to move into and capture more audiences than ever before.
Well, also where you're doing that, the white space you're also moving into is audio. You have the Blueprint Gen, which is a pod that you're doing. How is MS sort of embracing the pod space, which, let's be frank, like it is a very busy space. Everyone has a pod now. It's like, give them a newsletter, give them a pod. Is there a point that this reaches saturation, that there are too many of these?
Maybe. I think the only mistake we could make right now is trying nothing new or trying nothing. And that's true for not just us, but I think anybody in the media space right now. I've done 2 seasons of The Blueprint. It started out as part therapy post-2024 election, part self-reflection, and a lot of the people I had on wanted to have a therapy-self-reflection conversation. And that's a healthy and powerful and important one. And it actually was a good example, still is, because The Democratic Party was out of power, still out of power. They controlled nothing. They were rarely going to be the leading story because you're covering what's happening from the White House, what's happening in Congress, what's happening at the Supreme Court, none of which Democrats have control over. So this was a format. So my point is, it was rarely going to make it on the linear show in a lengthy conversation. So this was a way to have thoughtful, longer conversations with people about the future of the Democratic Party, what needed to change, what self-reflection needed to happen. And the truth is, you can't get people to really talk about that sort of thing if you have a conversation for 3.5 minutes. So it enabled some really powerful conversations with everybody from Wes Moore to J.B. Pritzker to Don Lemon. I had conversations with all sorts of people throughout the process of this. But yeah, I think you have to always evaluate what's working and what's not, and invest in the things and do more of the things that are working. And that's something we all just have to be kind of honest with ourselves about.
All of these things that we're talking about today, they build loyalty, they introduce you to new audiences. I have a subscription product. I talk a lot about getting people in the funnel. So getting people to come in and subscribe to Breaker, and then I have to convert them to a paid subscriber. Marcus, how do you then use these initiatives to bring in that audience, but ensure that you keep them, that they're not just a drive-by, they're not just a one and done, they're not just seeing that 50 cent, they're not just listening to that interview. How do you actually capture them and ensure that there is some kind of loyalty or lifetime value of that consumer, of that customer?
Well, it's as a Breaker subscriber.
I'm sorry for your loss. I saw you signed up last night. Thank you.
It's about the metrics are key, right? And we have the technology now where that's why we don't have to rely on what we had to do when I first started in this business of the guts of the journalists. I mean, I love journalists' guts. That's great. But we actually have metrics that tell us what do audiences actually connect with? What do they care about most? And that research that we're doing before we even launch our product tells us what they care about most. I mean, there's a feeling of anxiety. Mm-hmm. There's a feeling of isolation. Mm-hmm. And there's a feeling of overwhelm. You know, that's why people are turning off.
There's a lot of news fatigue, right?
Absolutely. And so we're trying to design a product that actually gets beyond that. Because we need an informed citizenry. It's one of the fulcrums of democracy. And that's more important than ever. But we also have to give you the information in a way that you actually find engaging and interesting. And then we have to monitor what do you actually engage with, what do you connect with, what do you find to be an obsession, right? And other people who have succeeded in our space have done that. The New York Times is a good example. No one's going to say the New York Times is not a news organization. However, their games are what
and
people
recipes.
engage with most. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're lucky because we have a base of intensely loyal audiences, these super fans that spend 8 hours a week with us on linear, and they tell us in the research they want more time with us, and that's awesome. So we start there, but then we grow to what we call the future fans, and some of them are now on TikTok, some of them are on Insta, some are other places, and then we find out which of those are actually convertible, and we help drive them down the funnel.
How do you see the competitive landscape? Because obviously CNN has CNN All Access, Fox has their streaming product, Fox Nation. How do you all see the competitive landscape? It's a very competitive environment out there. Everyone is trying to vie for these eyeballs and this audience. You, I think, have this advantage with these super fans that we keep coming back to. But still, how do you see the competitive set?
Again, I want us all to succeed because I think if all boats rise, that's a good thing. That said, I think we have to start with our competitive advantages. So actually, I'm wrong. Start with user needs, and then what are your competitive advantages to meet those user needs? So everyone, it's different for maybe every publisher. For us, it is that engagement and that fact, that analysis and that understanding, rather than just a commodification of more and more news. That's not the way that we win. And so we're trying to do something that actually has not been done at all in the space before.
Ari, Jen?
I mean, I would just echo what Ari started our conversation saying, that people watch people. And one of our huge advantages is the connection between the hosts and the audience and community that watches. And I know this, putting myself aside, sometimes when I'm in an airport or even at the MS, at the FanFest events that we do every year, people will say, I know Lawrence was off for a week. Is he okay? Or, I was wondering, like Rachel is looking a little like, she needs like a pep, so I made her some pound cake. I mean, there is a tremendous connection, and it's very mutual. That we feel that. I think the audiences and the community feels that with us, and that is unique and different from, I think, a lot of other television networks right now.
You mentioned what some other cable news folks are doing online.
Yeah.
Respectfully, Jay-Z said,
how did I know you were going to get launched into it?
We're not in the
now
same...
Now you know what it's like to sit with Ari on a set for hours. Yes, go ahead, Ari.
It's only tiresome after the first one. No, but he said, we're not in the same league. We're not in the same bracket. And we don't do the same things, and we don't shoot at the same baskets. So some of what you mentioned, they're just doing something else, and I wish them well. But I don't think it is the same or in the same bracket of the passion, the care, the authenticity of our colleagues and what we're doing. If there's like a joke about some of the people on MS Now, some of our anchors, it's that they care too much. They're too excited. You could turn on election night, they seem exercised. That's true, that's real. And sometimes I get it because I have people come up to me and they go, oh, I watched this much and I'm getting excited. I say, well, maybe you watched enough for today. I mean, that's fine. But what we have are people who are so passionate, and so many of the people, because of our leadership, Rebecca and others over the years, have really selected and encouraged people who come out of the field that they're now covering. So I came out of practicing free speech law, and we just talked about Jen's background. And Rachel is a decorated
Genius.
Scholar, Rhodes Scholar, author. She also was originally an activist, and that still comes through in how much she cares. So that's what we're doing. So when we then turn that into a conversation online, I really don't think it's exaggerated to say, for us, it's community. It's community. And that's different than when you go down the strip. I was thinking about this here. Like, you see these big signs with these big people, and some of them are stars. And they have fans, and you can sell out the Sphere, and that's dope. I love going to music shows. I think what we're doing is different than that, and we're not saying, oh my gosh, we're news stars, and there should be like a line of fans, but we are saying like, oh wait, you've been thinking about our society? Yes, so have we. And how do we do this together? And if there are things that are hard in politics or in how we treat each other, or even things that are so nonpartisan, wait, how are our kids going to deal with this world we're handing them? With the phone and the hours on there, and you got 12-year-olds comparing each other, how they look and how they sound and what's their brand, and how are we going to deal with this as a society? Like, yeah, that's not a one-off, one-night thing. And so with people where you might actually respect their values and let's reason through this together, yeah, I think we do that as community. And so in a way, it's more humble than trying to be a star. But another way, to be real, and we keep it real, it's also a little more aspirational because we want to get this right, and we want to give people usable, valid, actual information and knowledge. And so having places where some of the community then continues that's really natural to what we're trying to do. So it started with a bragging Jay-Z reference, but it ended with something really sentimental.
That's why we're starting with community, and that's why we think we're going to win.
You guys inked a deal with Crooked Media recently. There's now Crooked on Saturday nights on MS. There's chatter that Versant could acquire the Vox Pod network, which potentially could mean the likes of Pivot, Kara Swisher, or Scott Galloway would become a part of this organization. What other partnerships are you looking at to broaden the reach? Because that's clearly part of the strategy here, to bring in new audiences. Crooked traditionally has a much younger audience. What other initiatives, and where else are you looking to find new pockets of audience?
So we're looking everywhere. We are obsessed with growth because part of the spin has been opportunity for us to grow in a new way, in a way that, as and Ari said this word, authentic. Authenticity is so important to who we are and our identity. Our values are central to who we are. We put them out there everywhere for the world to see. We think that's a strength, a competitive advantage. So we're looking to grow anywhere where it makes sense with partnerships, partners that line up with that. We're developing right now a slew of partnership programs from media, content, content partnerships, marketing partnerships, even kind of value exchanges. So in a way we never have before. So it's super exciting, but we're looking everywhere to grow.
Could you tease with me maybe where some other ones of those are?
Nope. Hopefully soon.
What does success look like for this membership program? Like, let's talk maybe a year out from it being off the ground. How are you going to evaluate whether this thing has been a hit or not?
It's all about the numbers. It's membership numbers, it's churn numbers. What is lucky is we're going to launch this summer, which is a heady time. The whole world.
I feel like there's a lot of news that's going to happen sort of later this year. Is my spidey sense on track?
That's right.
Yeah.
So you're a good journalist. That's why you know. You know what's coming down the pike. It's really exciting because we saw it with the last election night when we beat my old employer, CNN. And that's on a linear space. We're going from strength to strength. So we're looking to increase that power. The whole world is going to be seeing, the big news story will be, not just in this country, but around the planet. Will the president continue his enterprise of ever greater consolidation of executive power, or will the Democrats actually have an ability to stop him or halt him or check him or not? Not just Americans care about this, but millions of people, billions of people around the planet care about this. So they're all going to look to us more than any other network. And that's a great opportunity for us to build subscribers to this product. And then we're going to see how does that line up after the elections next year, as we're in the 2028 cycle already. How do we grow that over that time? And then this is just our first step. This inaugural D2C product is just our first step. We have a whole bunch of array of digital products we'd like to build out.
Jed and Ari, your audience is going to be looking to both of you and to your colleagues coming up to November. How are you looking to capture this moment, and what thoughts are on your mind, Jen, particularly because of your background, working for the Dems?
I mean, one of the things I think about often is that politics is about a moment in time. And so you can look at trends and you can look at what you're seeing out there. And we talk about this quite a bit, of course, on all of our shows. You see the protests, you see the No King's Day movement, you see the special elections and the fact that Democrats have won every special election and overperformed in double digits. And that all feels like very good signs for the Democrats. But I think it's also about, and this is what we try to do a lot on our show, is looking for movements and moments in states and communities, because part of, and I know we're doing this partnership with kind of like state and local or news organizations as well, is trying to bring to the viewers not just what's happening in Washington. My show is in Washington. There are a lot of important stories that happen in Washington, but also how things are impacting communities out in the country and how communities are responding to what's happening in Washington. And to me, that's always been about what divides, from having worked on the side of politics for a long time, what divides excellent reporting and informative journalism from journalism that can sometimes seem repetitive or sort of, you're in the beltway. And so part of what I'm looking at is that. The stories of what is happening in certain states that are interesting to me. This is the last thing I say. I could talk about politics for a long time, but we only have a few minutes left. Alaska, really interesting. What's happening in Nebraska, very interesting. Ohio, also interesting. Texas, really $27 million raised by James Tallarico there in a state. There's not a Republican nominee yet. Super interesting. Are Democrats going to win all those? Probably not, but all interesting to watch. And then there are also places like Michigan and Maine where what's happening in politics is not what people in Washington thought was going to happen in politics. So I say all this because part of our responsibility, I think, is not just to talk to the same people in a circle at a table in the Beltway or in New York. It's to really engage with and talk to people outside of the circle that we're living in.
Ari?
In Russia, they say, you might not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And I think we're in a country where people have seen how important politics and elections are. So you might not be interested, but then you got high prices. And then you got tariffs. And then you got gas prices are now up. And then you got a war. And you're wondering, is that going to go a long time? And how's that going to affect anyone in your life who might serve in the military? The list goes on. So I think we're in a moment where turnout was up in the presidential years, the last 2 presidential cycles. People are engaged, but they're also angry, and some of them are disaffected. And in media, as we've been discussing here, you go on TikTok, the first comment of anything major, whether it's, oh, they're going to blockade the blockade or something else, the first comment's usually, is this real? People want to know what's happening and what they can trust. And I don't think the period that we've been in is going to subside. I think we are in a pretty active political period. So for us, midterms and beyond, we want to be a credible source for that, and it's going to stay active.
And I'd be remiss to the panel at NAB not to ask the AI question, because you kind of just referred to that there is so much misinformation, disinfo, so much slop out there. Is that something that plays on all of your minds as both of you go about your journalistic work, and also, Marcus, you go about creating this product?
From our point of view, absolutely. Again, this is another insane part of our landscape that actually I think is a great opportunity for us. If you see all this AI slop, and it's getting better and better. We call it slop, but it is getting so good, and it's only going to get even better, that unless you're really, really in the know, you're not going to be able to distinguish between what's fake and what's real. You will not. And so you will need, therefore, the value of
an authoritative, trusted voices and people.
is greater than ever before, and that's an opportunity for us.
I should have mentioned this earlier. I am Ari's AI agent, and
we had a surprise in store. I didn't want to spoil it.
Yeah, this is part of the reveal of the show. Is he's at the Live Day Club party. No, I'm a human. I completely agree. The old saying online was, information wants to be free because it wants to be powerful, so everyone sees it. But information wants to be expensive because it wants to be valuable. And that's true now. AI is with us as a tool, but it also increases the value of bespoke, real, authentic human work, because people are also going to be looking for that in contrast.
I see we have 48 seconds left here, and I can do that because we're professionals. I will say that because we consider ourselves like a startup and independent in many ways, and we have a lot of editorial independence on our shows and what we do, that is similar to what you might see for people who are online creators who are talking about issues. But the difference is this: we have a standards and legal department that reviews all of the content that we put out. So we have all obviously been covering the war quite a bit. That is a place where there has been instances of AI creation of materials in a variety of fashions. And you can know that when you turn into Ari's show or my show or Lawrence's show or Chris's show, that the videos you're seeing, the content that's being reported has been reviewed and approved by a legal and standards department. It's not somebody sitting in their garage. And that's important.
Jen Psaki, Ari Melba, Marcus Marbury, give it up for these guys. Thank you, NAB. Thank you, Vegas.